This begins with a whisper on the wind. Not the kind you hear, but the kind that breathes through the bones of a vanished army.
After we find this, we found many bones on the ground.
In the blistering heart of Egypt's western desert, 6 centuries before Christ, 50,000 Persian soldiers marched into the sands. Their mission, to destroy a sacred oracle.
Where Cambyses is said to have sent 50,000 men to conquer Siwa.
They never returned. Not a body, not a weapon, just a myth passed down from Herodotus, and a silence too vast to ignore. But now, after thousands of years and a single haunting photograph, some say the desert is finally speaking. Could this be the moment we uncover what happened? The legend of the vanishing army. It begins in 525 BC. Cambyses II, the powerful son of Cyrus the Great, had just conquered Egypt. But that wasn't enough. Deep in the desert, the priests of the Oracle of Ammon at Siwa refused to recognize his authority. Cambyses saw this not just as defiance, but as an insult. So he acted. According to Herodotus, the father of history, Cambyses dispatched an army of 50,000 men from Thebes. Their mission was brutal: destroy the oracle, enslave the locals, and erase a symbol of resistance from the face of the earth. For 7 days, they marched westward through the Nile Valley, their supplies strapped to beasts of burden. Then, they reached an oasis, possibly modern-day Karga, where they were last seen alive. After that, nothing. The next part of Herodotus' story reads like a myth. He wrote that as the army moved further into the desert, a violent southern wind swept in. A sandstorm so immense, so sudden, it buried every man as they sat down for a meal. The desert swallowed them whole. No bones, no armor, no trace. Gone in an instant. No survivors. It's one paragraph in an ancient text, but it has haunted historians and adventurers for centuries.
I suspect that the Persian army setting out into the desert would not really have known what was there. They were at the far extreme of their empire here.
Was it an exaggeration, a moral tale warning against sacrilege, or a factual report from Egyptian sources that Herodotus never witnessed himself? The line between myth and memory grows thin in such heat. Skeptics argue the logistics. How could 50,000 soldiers even survive the journey? The water, the heat, the sheer isolation? Others point to the desert's uncanny ability to preserve history under its sands for millennia. If the army did perish, surely something, anything, must have survived, waiting just beneath the surface. The story's power lies in that emptiness. The idea of a colossal army being wiped out not by sword or siege, but by nature itself, a force too vast to fight and too quiet to trace. Herodotus gave us the tale, but he didn't give us the ending. That's what explorers and scientists are still chasing, not just bones in the sand, but a truth buried under time and dust. The obsession begins: explorers and adventurers. For more than 2,000 years, the fate of Cambyses' army stayed buried, more legend than history. But in the 20th century, the myth began to breathe again, not through scholars, but adventurers. The idea that an entire army might still lie beneath the sands of Egypt was too powerful to ignore and too tempting to resist. One of the first to chase this ghost was Count Laszlo Almasi, a Hungarian aristocrat and desert explorer better known today as the English Patient. During the 1930s, he drove deep into the Sahara in a battered car with nothing but maps, rumors, and his obsession. Almasi believed the army had not vanished randomly. He was certain it had veered off course, misled by geography and doomed by thirst and faulty navigation. Before he died in 1951, Almasi confided to a friend that he was close. He claimed to have found artifacts, possible signs of ancient soldiers, but never revealed their location. Whatever he knew, he took it with him. He spoke freely, but guarded his exact coordinates with the secrecy of a man who knew he was on the edge of something vast. He wasn't alone. Over the years, dozens of explorers, many with no background in archaeology, headed into the desert armed with Herodotus and hope. Some were driven by curiosity, others by ego, but none returned with proof. But something else was happening. The legend was seeping into culture. Novels, films, and even military strategy classes referenced the tale of the lost Persian army. It wasn't just about finding bones anymore. It was about solving a mystery no one else could. The desert, vast and silent, became a proving ground for anyone who craved the thrill of impossible odds. Still, each expedition returned with only stories. No weapons, no human remains, just shifting sand and the ache of what might be beneath it. But then, almost by accident, something surfaced. In the early 2000s, a Cairo newspaper published a photo: bronze arrowheads, a dagger, bones. A geologist named Dr. Ali Barakat claimed he'd found them in the western desert. The archaeological world stirred. Was this finally it? Or another mirage? The obsession had never died. But now it had something new to chase, not a myth, evidence, and maybe, this time, something real. The geologists claim Dr. Ali Barakat's discovery. He wasn't an archaeologist. He wasn't even looking for lost armies. Dr. Ali Barakat was a geologist on a routine field mission when he stumbled upon something that would ignite a firestorm. Scattered across a patch of desert, so remote it barely had a name, he found bones, bronze fragments, and a dagger buried in the sand like a forgotten marker of violence. He photographed everything. He marked the location, and then he went home. In 2000, a Cairo newspaper published his findings. The images were stark: rusted metal, a human jawbone, a small pile of bones beneath a sandstone ledge. Dr. Barakat believed he had found what Herodotus had only imagined: the remains of Cambyses' army. It was the first tangible clue in more than 2,000 years.
After 13 years of research and 5 expeditions to the desert, 2 top Italian archaeologists claim to have found the first evidence for the lost army of Cambyses.
And it sent a ripple through both the academic world and the public imagination. Reaction was swift and divided. In academic circles, skepticism came first. After all, Barakat was not trained in archaeology. He had no excavation permit. And the location, deep within a military-restricted zone, raised logistical and political complications. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities refused to invite him back. Instead, they sent their team. Their vehicles got stuck in the dunes. The search was abandoned before it really began. But in the cafes and markets of Cairo, Barakat became a quiet hero. People whispered that he had found it, that the bones were real, that the sands had finally given up their secret after centuries of silence. His name passed from mouth to mouth, half in awe, half in disbelief. For geologist Tom Bowne, it wasn't just hearsay. He had worked with Barakat and trusted his instincts. If Ali said he found weapons and bones, Tom believed him. That belief turned into determination. A new expedition was planned, this time led by Tom and archaeologist Gail McKinnon, this time fully focused on the legend. Barakat couldn't join them. He had been denied a return permit. But he handed over everything he had: photos, coordinates, and the memory of something he couldn't quite explain. "Millions of bones," he said, "until I realized they were human." The desert had opened its mouth. Now it was time to go in and listen. Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. Following the route. Tom Bowne's new theory. Tom Bowne wasn't chasing myth. He was chasing logic. A seasoned geologist with years of desert experience, he believed the story of Cambyses' army could be true, but not the way it had always been told. According to Herodotus, the army vanished somewhere west of Karga Oasis on the way to Siwa. But Tom had a different idea. He thought they never even got close. In his view, the army got lost. Ancient Persians didn't have precise maps. They couldn't measure longitude. Their guides were likely unfamiliar with the landscape. And their idea of west might have led them far off track. Tom studied old bearings, water sources, and desert topography. What he found was chilling. The most likely path, based on mistaken assumptions, would have taken the army not towards Siwa, but straight into the Great Sand Sea. It's a place unlike any other on Earth. Over 100,000 square miles of dunes, some rising 500 feet high. A landscape in constant motion. The kind of place where a person or an entire army could disappear and never be seen again. To Tom, the logic fit. The Persians left Karga and followed the water. From there, they likely reached a small oasis, Ain Amur, where they would have rested and filled up. That may have been their last real chance at survival. From Ain Amur onward, there was no water, no landmarks, just endless rolling sand. If they had been following the wrong compass bearing, they would have walked directly into the sand sea, thinking they were still on track for Siwa. It's here, in this stretch of deadly terrain, that Tom believes the army perished. Not in a single dramatic moment, but over days. Thirst, heat, confusion, a slow death. Unlike others, Tom wasn't expecting to find a battlefield. He was looking for campsites, scattered relics, evidence of a broken army fading across the dunes. He called it butt hopping, a search from rock to rock, where soldiers might have taken shelter before dying in the shade. Not myth, just a miscalculation, and the desert did the rest. Into the sand sea, modern expeditions and discoveries. The plan was simple. Drive into one of the most unforgiving landscapes on Earth and follow the trail of a dead army. For Tom Bowne and archaeologist Gail McKinnon, the Great Sand Sea wasn't just a challenge. It was the final test of everything Herodotus had written and everything Dr. Barakat had claimed. Their vehicles followed a narrow corridor between dunes, the same paths pioneered by explorers like Count Almasi nearly a century earlier. Modern tires, modern maps, but the risks hadn't changed. The sand could still trap you. The storms could still blind you. And in a place with no roads and no water, a mistake could still kill you. They scanned the terrain, moving from one rocky outcrop to the next, what Tom called butts. These formations offered natural shelter, the kind an army on foot would have used to escape the heat or a storm. If Cambyses' soldiers had passed this way, something, anything, might remain. A water jar, a broken weapon, a bone. At first, the desert was quiet, just wind and sun and silence. Then, something. Fragments, bones, not many and not in a clear burial, but unmistakably human. Long bones, a skull piece, scattered under the lip of a sandstone ledge. The question was immediate. Who were they? Could a handful of bones in the sand belong to Cambyses' lost men? Or had they stumbled upon something else? Perhaps a traveler, a Bedouin, or a soldier from a different age. Gail was cautious, Tom was hopeful. For him, this wasn't about finding 50,000 skeletons. It was about finding enough, just enough, to prove that Herodotus wasn't telling a fable. He believed the army had broken apart, its men dying in scattered groups across the sand. These bones, even if just a few, could be the first proof of that slow, forgotten death. And as the wind began to pick up, they were reminded again how quickly the desert can turn. A sandstorm was building, the same kind Herodotus described, the same kind that might have buried an army, one grain at a time. Final clues and unanswered questions. Back in Cairo, the mystery tightened. Dr. Barakat had handed over his finds, arrowheads, a corroded dagger, and fragments of bone to the Supreme Council of Antiquities. Then came silence. The items vanished into Egypt's bureaucracy. No public statements, no formal studies, just whispers. Tom and Gail weren't content with rumors. They wanted answers, so they went higher to the Ministry of Culture. The minister's archaeological advisor examined the photographs. His response was polite but skeptical. The items, he said, could belong to any army from the Bronze Age to the Islamic era. Without excavation and context, there was no way to be sure. But not everyone was so dismissive. In London at the British Museum, Dr. John Curtis held a different view. An expert in ancient Persian military gear, he studied the photos of the arrowheads. His conclusion was careful but clear. The three-winged bronze arrowheads matched known Persian designs from Cambyses' era. They were, in his words, exactly the type we would expect the army of Cambyses to be using. It was the first time a specialist had connected the artifacts directly to the lost army. Still, it wasn't proof. Without a clear burial site or datable remains, no one could definitively say these weapons belonged to the men Herodotus wrote about. But they pushed the story forward. They turned legend into possibility. Back in the desert, Tom and Gail kept searching. At one site, they found more bone fragments, human, weathered, and ancient. Tom imagined a soldier crawling beneath the rock to find shade in his final hour. Gail remained cautious, maybe Persian, maybe not. It ended like it began, with questions. Had the army died just short of Siwa? Did they march the wrong way, led by flawed bearings and desperation? Was the sandstorm real or symbolic? Maybe the answer lies buried still, waiting for another wind to uncover it. Or maybe, like so many ancient stories, it lives in fragments, bones, arrowheads, and whispers that never quite become a voice. This ends not with a discovery, but a silence. A silence heavy with what might still lie beneath the sand. The lost army of Cambyses may never be found in full, no matter how many bones or bronze blades the desert reveals. But that doesn't make the search any less meaningful. It's not only about proving Herodotus right, it's about how memory fades and how sometimes even the earth forgets. In the end, the sands remember more than we do, and maybe that's where some stories belong. Not in books or museums, but hidden, waiting, just beyond the reach of certainty.